Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly Podcast. I am Tony Gerdeman here, as always, with Tom Orr, and also tonight with Kevin Noon as we get ready for our college football playoff ranking watch along reveal. First, Tom, how's it going?
Well, Tony, I just want to say I've been reading through the comments and everyone has guessed wrong on my outfit. So congratulations, you all lose.
Kevin, how are you doing?
I'm doing fine. I would never wear a blue Eddie Bauer pullover, so I mean, I'm already winning.
Well, Tom,
not at that camera angle, you're not.
I don't know what to do. I mean, I don't have a TV tray that's tall enough to do this. I know it's that horrible, no, under the chin shot, but whatever.
As long as you care. Yeah, so we're all watching ESPN, knowing that Tom Izzo is not going to make this game last any longer than it needs to be, and that we will be revealed of these new rankings here any moment now. And then, as usual, I will jump off and get on the call while Tom and Kevin, I don't know what they do. Frankly, I don't care. But hopefully they address a bunch of questions, and they're not just, it's not a whole bunch of buffoonery. But it probably is.
Hi, welcome to the Buckeye Weekly Podcast. Tony is our first-time host, apparently.
So feel free to throw the questions in there. We'll get at them throughout this next hour and a half is usually what we go. The teleconference is set for 9:45. I'm guessing that's not going to be pushed. That will just be they're going to keep that the way it is, and unless this goes four over. Oh, I almost said unless this goes four overtimes.
What could possibly go wrong, Tony? That's your question, right? Did I understand your question?
They would just move this game to like ESPNU, and get the football stuff out here on the mothership, as they say, as we all watch
from the arena, where they would do like this one week that they would do it between games. They would have the football crew do it in the arena. Wow. Glad that wasn't a 3, Tony.
Oh, I see, Kevin, you're behind.
I am, of course. DirecTV. I'm at least 7 seconds behind.
Well, at least it's not cloudy out. You wouldn't be able to see anything. So let me ask you guys.
Here's a spoiler alert. Tom Izzo just called the timeout. I'm surprised too.
35.6 seconds left. This game could be over literally any minute.
Now we call
this is fantastic. So I was trying to figure out how the SEC could be left out. And I think I have figured it out. Now, this very likely could happen, you guys. All it would take is for Georgia to lose this week at Kentucky, right? To give them a loss. LSU has to lose next week at Texas A&M. LSU is already in the SEC championship game. So if they lose next week at Texas A&M, they are a 3-loss team. Then they beat Georgia. They're not sending a 3-loss SEC champ to the playoffs. They're also not sending a 2-loss Georgia non-champ to the playoffs, provided USC stays at 1 loss and the ACC champ stays at 1 loss. Also, you need Tennessee to lose this week at South Carolina or next week at Vandy. And then, boom, no SEC in the playoffs.
I mean,
no.
That's
no
roll tide. Play this year? Have you seen A&M play this year?
That's the right answer. Texas A&M at number 3 rather than number 4.
I was assured that NIL was going to change everything about that program. Has that not happened? I haven't looked. I haven't followed the sport particularly closely this fall. I assume A&M is like right in the middle of the national championship hunt, and Texas as well, and Miami too, right? Those teams all that immediately just changed everything. Is that right? Well, I was told that was right. Have I missed anything?
It has changed some things. It has made them all worse. Yes. It has made them all a lesser congruent program piece by piece. Each one of those, like Texas A&M is worse. Texas, you saw what their NIL quarterback did the past few weeks.
I have a question. Is this like when back in the 80s, people were like, yeah, man, that's bad, and bad meant good? Is this one of those things where worse means also good, better? Is this where worse means better?
No, it
No?
means that worse means worse, despite what you may have heard, may have been told, may have been harped on. NIL has not yet been able to buy a championship, but you know what? There's still time for Texas A&M. There's still time for Miami. Keep trying. Something's got to work down there. And maybe Jimbo Fisher can't get it done at Texas A&M, but somebody else can. It's an easy place to win. I'm sure somebody will be able to come in there, swoop in there for, I don't know, 140 million. And you pay the coach 140 million, you pay the players 140 million. That's $280 million, and you can't possibly lose.
Someone asking a question: When are the rankings coming out? The rankings are coming out when the basketball game on ESPN between Michigan State and Kentucky ends. As soon as that's over, then they will start the college football playoff ranking show. Right now, there's 35.6 seconds left, and Kentucky leads by 1. So, are we going to deeply regret having started the show when this game goes to double overtime? Possibly. I don't know. Maybe.
You know what? We're all just watching Big Ten SEC Challenge together. There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, we don't get to see it in football nearly enough. So why not enjoy it in November on the basketball court? And the best thing about it, it's not on an aircraft carrier. So that's pretty cool.
That is pretty cool.
Your anti-boat stance is troubling.
So close to Veterans Day, too, Tony.
Maybe I'm just anti-fisheries and fishermen's. Do you ever think about
I'm
that?
not sure I'm not sure you've got a good grasp on what aircraft carriers do.
Fair point. That's one
I was
for Tom.
I was expecting more mackerel in the movie Top Gun, but it was still okay.
Yeah. All right. Okay, that's enough. Anyway, let's watch this basketball game together.
Hey, Mav, fish and burn.
This is why I want the Elam ending everywhere. Not because it's necessarily a better ending, which it is, but it's a quicker ending. And these 2-hour windows that college basketball used to fit into, these windows have no longer been working for the last 10 years or so.
Yeah.
Cameron Johnson here. Do you guys think Cam Babb could take some snaps from Julian Fleming because he has been blocking well and he's been having some drops? Tom, go ahead.
I think at this point, the fact that you have not seen Cam Babb except in that very last play of the game, that makes me think he's probably not super close to cracking the regular rotation. You may see him again this weekend. That's entirely possible. You see him play this weekend, but I don't think he's someone who's getting first quarter snaps right now. You got to remember, he's been not 100% for basically the whole season. I think they wanted to get him back to try and get him in that Indiana game, and then you got the touchdown, and anything else right now is gravy. I would not expect to see Cam Babb taking, first quarter snaps against Michigan or something like that. Maybe I'm wrong on that, but I have not gotten the sense based on how, when he came into that game on Saturday. I don't think he's super close to taking first team reps in the first quarter.
No, and based on what Ryan Day said on Tuesday about what's Cam Babb's role, and he's like, I don't know. To me, I don't see him really playing, because he's still out there with a knee brace running a route. So he's not where he needs to be, and they're being super careful with him. And, they're already talking about the workload that they have to maintain with him. So I don't expect him to really play. I think this was something that everybody wanted, but in terms of playing, I don't see that for him this week. And maybe it's a bowl game thing, something like that, or a playoff thing. But, at that point, if you can get through, 2 weeks of practices and you're good to go and you're better than ever, then maybe. But I don't see him taking any snaps from Julian Fleming at this point. And I think if you want Fleming to be at his best, you play him more. Like you get him snaps and you get him ready for Michigan. You get him ready for whatever else is coming. As we sit here with 15.4 seconds left, Kentucky at the free throw line leading 61-60. Sorry, Kevin, I've spoiled it for you.
We also have an important update. Brent Swick says, not the SEC versus Big Ten doesn't sound interesting. The Blue Jackets are on TV. We never get to see them. But the Blue Jackets currently in the second intermission, tied 2-2 with the Flyers.
What could possibly go wrong?
Well, and you look at the injuries to the Ohio State running back room, and is the running back unit the Blue Jackets of the Ohio State football team, or are the Blue Jackets the Ohio State running back room of the NHL? Because neither one has been great at staying healthy this fall.
I see young defenseman Nick Blankenberg hit drop in an empty net goal about a week ago, and then the next day it's like he's out for 6 to 8 weeks with a broken ankle. I'm like, but did he get injured in the time between the goal and the end of the game? It's like, no, he played on a broken ankle for like 2 periods.
Like, that sounds about right. Yeah, Werenski's out for the season. Yeah,
and he's a tough little dude, and he's part of the future of the Blue Jackets. 11 seconds left. Kentucky up 62-60. So I'm hoping this is where Tom Izzo draws up a 3-pointer at the buzzer.
I'm just going to make an editorial decision here and say that we should start the podcast over again with you saying hello and welcome to the Buckeye Weekly Podcast when the actual show comes on.
Oh, that's
so it's
a good
not
idea.
12. No, so it's not 12 minutes of college basketball chat. We will, for those of you guys who are here and watching with us. I will tell you, Kevin and Tony and I had a little editorial meeting today, and go ahead and clear your calendars for next week because we're going to have a good bit of Ohio State Michigan content. So you have that to look forward to. You're gonna want to refresh podcast feeds multiple times a day and all that kind of stuff. So we're excited too. So look for a bunch of content.
I would recommend just quitting your jobs.
At least take a leave of absence.
Okay, great. Unannounced leave of absence, and then just show up a week later. Like, you know what? I didn't go anywhere for that long a period of time. Do I need to spell everything out as Michigan State has tied it with 3.7 seconds left? Sorry, Kevin. Dave Larman. Hey, Kevin, Tom, and Todd. Do you guys sleep? Not as much as we like, but more than we will next week. That is for darn sure.
Oh, Elvis went out. Elvis Merzlikins apparently went out in the second period with an injury. Of all the cursed Blue Jacket seasons, this might be the most cursed.
But if it gets them the number one prospect, then it's worth it.
Well, I would prefer they had a just okay season and then lucked into the first pick in the draft lottery, like seems to happen for other teams.
Yeah, fair. My plan with the Bears, the Chicago Bears, obviously, I think they're getting to the point where I want them to start winning, but I'm also to the point where next season I'm torn between winning and my hashtag of starve for Marv, where you win as few games as possible so that you can get Marvin Harrison. And I don't know what that's going to take. Do you need to be in the top 5? Perhaps.
Yes. The answer is yes. The question is, do you need to be in the top 3? And the answer is, yeah, maybe. How long is this timeout? Is there a 572-second timeout that I'm not aware of? I remember it's 30-second timeout. But
Coach Cal gets like not 30s, but like 576 seconds or whatever.
Because you got to remember, Coach Cal talks with his hands during timeout, so he needs more time.
When this timeout started, they were still playing St. Peter's. I don't understand. How is this going on this long?
All right, 3.7 seconds. Everybody be quiet. Don't tell Kevin anything that happens here. Don't react in any way. Oh, it's the Evan Turner play. No, it's not.
Oh, good news, everybody! More basketball. Why don't you get up and freshen your drinks? And
I mean, we have 162 people already with us. So,
all right. So I'll tell you what. Let's do. Do we want to do a off topic? Because we should save the Maryland and Michigan talk for when we're actually doing the podcast episode. So do we want to do off-topic questions? Oh man, Market X says I also bought a Chicago Bears rebuilding since 1985 shirt last week. That's pretty nice. Good. They did make the Super Bowl one year in that
2007 year, 2006 season, same as the Buckeyes, because Devin Hester started the Super Bowl with a kickoff return for a touchdown, just like Ted Ginn did. And both teams, I believe, won with those kickoff return touchdowns.
Glasswing Butterfly says, I'm sorry, but football is so much better than basketball. Is that an unpopular opinion? I would imagine within this particular broadcast, we're going to find nearly unanimous agreement there. Wingman Ted wants to know, How about a Columbus Hungry Huddle discussion of campus eats? Where do we want to do a campus Hungry Huddle?
Well, I mean, we've been to
I think
Tommy's so many times.
I think we have to set kind of criteria. Is it a matter of that we want to go and get the best meal, or do we want to have, the most fun video or whatever? I think that if we sat there and went to like Cazuela's and made Todd eat the hot burrito there or whatever, the one that's on the challenge, I think that would be the most fun for us.
I don't feel the need to put myself through anguish or pain. Now, where we're going this weekend, and we won't spoil the surprise, it's going to make me feel not uncomfortable, but it's going to take me out of my element. But let's be honest, most places that cost more than $12 for a meal takes me out of my element. So, but it's going to be a lot of awkward.
Haas's steak and seafood was a little on the fancy side for you, but it's like, whoa. A nice Ponderosa? Nobody said this was like a nice version of Ponderosa.
You mean I get to put the ice cream in a bowl instead of my hand?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't know where we would necessarily go on campus. It's not like Mama's Pasta and Brews there anymore or anything like that. Or
Hound Dog's Pizza. That's your answer. Smoking Joe's. We all get a Smoking Joe's style pizza. It is the only place I have ever seen where the grease from the pizza literally does if the paper turns clear, it's your window to weight gain. Like it will like leach through the box. It's incredible. It is delicious. Get the Smoking Joe style with the garlic butter on the crust and at least the medium spiciness sauce. That is a fine pizza, and it is dark and dingy, and they still have the same 1983 whatever Cadillac or Pontiac or whatever it is with the plastic hound dog strapped to the top, parked out back, that they did 20 years ago. So yes, that would be my vote.
I don't. When would we do it though? We should have done it today during our production meeting, but
because we have so much time right now. I mean, we got countless options to go and knock it out.
I could we have to be on campus tomorrow anyway. Like I could do it tomorrow, but because
your
we've
cameraman
got football.
wouldn't be there. I've got to
even better.
Guess what? More podcasts are coming. I've got to record podcasts for other members of staff all the way up through like 4:30 tomorrow. So,
Kevin, you know where your bread is buttered. Screw those guys.
Well, when one of them is the one who signs the checks, yeah.
I'm tired of hearing about money. All right. What about
Forge his signature? How hard is this? Come on.
What about the art? The love of the art.
I'm just upset they gave Tom Izzo another timeout. Because they were down to 0, and you get the one at extra. Wingman Ted saying Buckeye Donuts. I mean,
what kind of breakfast sandwiches do they have? I've never actually been to Buckeye Donuts. I just walked by when I was in college and just
Donuts?
No, I'd never go. I didn't.
That means your degree doesn't count. You have to go back and do it over from the beginning.
I didn't do a lot of stuff on High Street that I should have, and that includes, as I said, La Bamba. Like I didn't eat any other Chinese food places. I didn't do Buckeye Donuts, so I had to stick with what I was familiar with. That was just
speaking of things you're familiar with. Glasswing Butterfly suggested Taco Bell $28 challenge.
Now is that fad past though? It's about a month old.
It's kind of
But I mean, I could do that with my 5 steak tacos, no problem. Boom, that's easy, and it wouldn't take long. You guys would just be like, "Can't believe I have to eat another burrito," and like you'd be like scarfing your burritos.
Hi, R1 Notre Dame fan here. How are you guys doing tonight? We're doing well. We'd be doing better if this Kentucky-Michigan State game were done and we could get to the rankings. And I don't think that anybody's going to be talking to Boo on the call at 9:45.
Oh, no. I bet we will. I just do want to clarify.
I bet you won't. They're not going to talk before then, and he's got to talk to Fowler at some point on the air.
Well, my question is, do we know, because my TV is muted, I'm sure your guys' are, they haven't moved it to another channel and we're missing it, right? We're not missing it, I assume.
My remote is across the room. I'm in the living room.
I will check. That's a
I can
tremendous
also-
question. ESPN2 has college football. Oh, the OU game's on.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, and
All right.
ESPN News
Bobcats
has
currently.
the Toledo
Ooh,
game.
Bobcats currently whomping Ball State 19-3. Former Buckeye Sam Wigloose back to return a punt for OU.
House
Josh,
taco
I've
at the
not
Ohio
tried
State.
house taco at the State House. I don't know if I've ever been to the State House.
I have heard that is very good. Oh, you know who I heard that was from? That was good, very good from? The gentleman who just suggested that, who is a friend of mine. I was like, someone else just mentioned house taco at the Ohio State House. We should go there. Yes, it was the same person. So
But
this, you have to have two sources in journalism.
Thank
folks.
you.
So
Yes.
you only have to have. This is only one.
Yeah.
yeah, or at least wear a mustache.
Shout out to
as
my
the
buddy
second
Josh.
source. Yeah.
Jeremiah Yoder, do the three of you prefer donuts or cream sticks? I don't know what a cream stick
Donuts.
is. It sounds
And
like a
yeast-
euphemism or something.
Yeast donuts over cake donuts. Everybody swears by duck donuts, and Krispy Kreme is the best there is.
Yeah, yeast,
and
team
just,
yeast donuts for sure.
yeah, just regular glazed donuts. And I saw something on TikTok the other day where a dude, I think he may have gotten a dozen. I think it's a dozen donuts, and he put them all like a dozen glazed, and he puts them all like in a Dagwood, and then he just smashes it, and you can hear the air just leaving all of it, and they're about this thick, and then he starts eating it. I was like, well, a Krispy Kreme, any one of us could go through a dozen Krispy Kremes. You
I
feel
think
terrible
the kitten
about it.
just came downstairs. Hold on.
I'm talking about, you totally ruined my flow, man.
This is like being on the phone with your grandmother. Hang on, the kitten's here. Matlock's on. All right. Okay, grandma.
I'm falling, and I can't get up. Oh, look at him.
He is a very bad kitten.
Well, look at the ears. I mean, you could tell.
We have a 15-year-old cat that wants nothing to do with him, and a 13-year-old corgi who he attacks on the regular. So now,
speaking of
Last Name
corgis,
Butterfly and
Tom
everybody
Izzo.
else can be very happy. We have a new co-host.
Also, Jeremiah,
Bowling-
it's DONUTS donuts. Let's not
Bowling
go with
Green is up. Bowling Green is up 10 on Toledo and just intercepted a pass. How?
I was 21-0 to start out with.
Right.
How does Toledo blow this every year? I don't understand.
Because Wood County is better than Lucas County. Bowling Green, there's more grit there. Toledo is like metropolitan.
More grit than Toledo. That seems like a big ask.
Like farmer grit.
Oh, good. Michigan State's down by 1 with less than a minute to go in the first overtime.
Don't say first overtime.
Why did I say the first overtime? Oh, friends, just wait.
Don't you put that evil on me, Ricky Tommy.
Jordan says Daquan Finn is injured and did not play tonight.
Okay.
Well,
Makes
there you
sense.
go.
He's just sitting out his impending transfer somewhere.
Oh, man.
That's fine. Keep it at 1. Just keep it at the 1 point.
That's right.
There's no way to score 1 point in basketball, so
This may encourage Tony to adopt a cat. Actually, we are adopting a cat, yes. And his name is Mr. Business, and he wears a bow tie. And we call him Busy for short.
And I'm not worried about free throws. These kids are at the top of their game. They're going to make their free throws. Why would a college kid ever miss a free throw? That's like saying like a college kicker would miss a kick.
Hang on. They've got to do a replay review in the first overtime.
My Taco Bell yet on what, David? I did get Taco Bell on the way back from leaving the stadium after the Indiana game, and it was mildly adequate.
Mega Slow, why does Michigan State always play these games against the other blue bloods in basketball? They always lose them. They'd be better off playing Morehead State or something like that. Tom Izzo just loves it. It makes them better, and that's why they're better in March than other Big Ten programs, because they do this, and everything that comes after it is much easier, and it gets them ready for that. And Chris Holtman has done some of that, not on the home schedule, but they had a good schedule last year. The non-conference schedule away from Value City isn't too bad. It'll help them out, but the home schedule this year for the Buckeyes is like the home schedule for the Buckeyes next year in football.
Yeah, not great. They play Eastern Illinois tomorrow, and it was. I looked at the six non-conference home games before the start of the season, and out of the 350 or 360 teams in Division I, all 6 of Ohio State's home non-conference opponents were ranked below 314th in Ken Palm last year. It's like it was very clearly intentionally selected to be the 6 easiest opponents they could play. So, whatever. You've got a lot of new faces trying to play together and figure out what you got. So you need to kind of do that. You get some wins, and that's fine. Important question here from Wingman Ted. Thoughts on Adriaticos? Now, I was a South Campus person. I know Tony was a North Campus person. I believe Kevin was North Campus as well, correct? Yeah. So I guess I will be the Adriaticos expert. We in our dorm used to always get the Buckeye pizza, which is the one that's like the size of a coffee table, and then the deep dish. We would get that on Monday nights, and people would watch professional wrestling and all that kind of stuff. I actually prefer their round pizza. It is a New York style place, even though the Buckeye pizza is a deep dish thing. Their New York style pizza is pretty good. It's not my favorite New York style pizza on campus. I prefer Fly Pie on High Street, which I think is not there anymore. But it's Adriaticos and Catfish Biffs on South Campus. Those are both very, very solid pizza choices.
No, I'm a big Adriaticos fan. It was a rare delicacy for North Campus. Plus 2, I could only afford Gumby's, so I ate a lot of Gumby's.
Yeah, the Adriaticos would have to be like a work thing, because we would cut the Papa John's coupons out of the lantern, and the good coupons were like $5.55 for one topping large. The regular was like $5.95 for one topping large back then. And like if they'd show up and you didn't have the coupon, there could be some fisticuffs. So yeah, it was usually Papa John's, or when you wanted more pizza but you didn't want to pay more for that muffler, you would get Gumby's, and like, well, I'm not going to be happy, but I will have had pizza, and so that's better than not having pizza. And then you get some pokey sticks or whatever else that you got to justify buying Gumby's, and so you get something good. But there were times where Gumby's was good, but then there are other times where it was just cheese on cardboard, and you never really knew.
You're not supposed to eat the lid of the box.
The pokey sticks were good.
They were very similar, but
the pokey sticks were good. I had a roommate who was, we'll call him frugal, and when it was his turn to buy pizza, it was like, oh, good, it's a Gumby's night. So yeah, it's fine, and the pokey sticks were fine. All right. Well, it's a 2-point game. Good news. The team who's down 2 has the ball with 7.6 seconds left. So I'm sure nothing's going to go wrong here.
Draw up a 3-pointer.
Tony, you just play for the tie here. Come on. You got to
drive the lane and get fouled.
The Burger King story. I don't know if that was the story that I was talked about wanting. Said I was
Dipsy-doo, Dunkaroo, baby. Tie score, 1.4 seconds left. It's awesome, baby. Double OT.
And we will see you for the week 4 college football playoff announcement next week.
Hey, Kevin, since we have time, let's hear the Burger King story.
That wasn't, I don't remember what the story was that I said I would tell one day or have somebody tell. It wouldn't be that one because the Burger King story puts me in a negative light, and I don't like those types of stories.
Is it the story about the Pennsylvania Turnpike Burger King? Because I feel like we've told that one.
We have told that one. No, there was another story. I don't remember.
Choosing not to remember. Like, I don't really remember what happened on my 21st birthday. There's no story there.
Oh, I remember what happened on my 21st birthday, and I'm not telling that one.
The statute of limitations has expired, so the fact that it happened during Prohibition is okay now. It's fine.
Well, I mean, we just finished our bathtub gin, and we just were going on. Let's just say I ended up getting a ride home from the police after staggering out of Outer Inn and going to the subway across the street and kind of like stumbling through my order while police were in there, and they said, we're going to act like we never saw you, and we're going to even do you one better and take you back to wherever it is you live after being carded, because I always looked very young.
Brett Swick wants to know for Eats, how about the Ray Ray's food truck? Do you like Ray Ray's? Because Ray Ray's is in Granville, so I know Ray Ray's well. Have you been to Ray Ray's, Kevin?
Yeah, I mean, there's a Ray Ray's food truck at Land Grant Brewing. I mean, that's the one that I've done the most. I think it's some of the better barbecue around town. I mean, I think Columbus is kind of weak, or Ohio in general. They're like, my favorite barbecue is in Logan.
Ohio, not weak.
Ohio weak.
Ohio's road apple.
I did enjoy the Ray Rays at Land Grant. The sausage was very good.
Mm-hmm.
I did not have any of the chicken. You guys ate all the chicken. Just saying. I'm a chicken person.
And it was boneless, so you would have eaten it.
Do we need to get to King Bronco's super chat, or
I just scrolled down there? Yes, those are the rules. I don't make them. Just cash the checks.
This from King Bronco. We wins 98-2, no overtimes. Y'all ain't us. Now, it's pretty bold to say no overtimes. I'm just saying. But good luck to Michigan. Good luck to Ohio State. I just want to see some friendly banter during the game.
I think 98-2 in triple overtime would be a much more remarkable game, if you ask me. But
Hey, whoa! What is this from? Obviously, Tony Girdwan's burner account. Might change my name to Tom Orr's burner account every time he wins the bold prediction show. Raise the stakes a small bit every week.
That's quite. I mean, if you feel you've earned that kind of honor, I mean, okay.
I don't. What is the spread for the Maryland game right now? I don't remember. I haven't written.
Was it still like 38 or 39? I can look here and tell you all since we have nothing going on.
Look, Tony has the internet. Look at you.
Well, there we go.
I'm not trying to brag, but I could pull it up on my computer.
27
and a half. I said it first.
You didn't ask me who was favored.
Yeah, well, there you go. Dave Larman asking about Raising Cane's, and I have a very unpopular opinion on that one. I think that the reason that their sauce game is so strong is because the chicken is pretty bland. And people are like, you don't need well-seasoned chicken when you have the sauce, but I just don't understand why you just don't put a little salt and pepper in that flour and profit right from the get-go. But the fries are good for about 1 minute, and then they congeal into a glop of badness, like Wendy's fries. The Texas toast is first rate. I mean, I really like the toast.
We're gonna title this episode like Friends episodes, where it's the one where, and this one will be the one where Kevin alienates all the potential sponsors. Thank you, Kevin.
I had Cane's tonight.
It's just my opinion.
I will agree. Zaxby's does a great job of seasoning their chicken fingers. I'm okay with how Cane's does theirs, but I think anytime you go crinkle fry, you're not trying. Like their crinkle fry is almost the least of the fries, and there's so much more you could do. Even if you're just going to season them differently, throw some Cajun seasoning on it. Do some Popeyes sort of stuff. But and they don't hold up.
Aren't crinkle fries like those Italian ridged pastas where it holds the sauce better? So don't crinkle fries hold the ketchup better?
Well, fries and ketchup mixed no matter what. Are you really like dipping your fry in and you're losing your ketchup on just like a McDonald's fry or a Wendy's fry? Fry technology, it's not really something that needs to be toyed with in terms of holding on to the ketchup, or if you're a foreigner, mayonnaise.
Well, what about Chick-fil-A and their waffle fries. I mean, you got all that surface area, and it becomes a little sauce dream catcher.
It is a sauce dream catcher, as long as it's salted properly.
What about Chick-fil-A waffle fries with Whataburger spicy ketchup?
I think the best fries out there. I really like Rally's fries. I haven't had them for a long time, but they take their fries seriously. I'm just going to say it. They take them seriously. Cane's doesn't. Other places don't. But again, if they want to sponsor the show, love your fries. I love your fries.
Here's another hot take.
There are Whataburgers in Phoenix, by the way. Just pulled that up. So we could potentially, if Ohio State goes to the Fiesta Bowl, we could do a Hungry Huddle at Whataburger.
Super chat from Glasswing Butterfly. How did 17 yards and 34 yards become canon in Buckeye Huddle lore? Tom, if I recall, and it's from our Bold Predictions podcast, where we're just trying to, boldly predict something. And I think I pulled up 17. You may have pulled up 34. Like you're just throwing like random yard markers out, and then it stuck that week, and then you add on to it, and then it becomes something like it's just, if it's part of your bold prediction, you almost have to deal with it. You have to accept it, and it's a throw in. It's like, and don't forget about the 17 and the 34, and that's pretty much how it started with the Bold Predictions podcast, right, Tom?
It definitely started with the Bold Predictions podcast, and the part of that story that rings the most true to me is that you were the one who said 17, and I was the one who went doubly bold and said 34. I think that's the part that rings the most true to me. So I don't specifically remember it, but it's like, I mean, that sounds true. That's probably right.
Mm-hmm. Why not you just say, like, you started the 34, and I was like, well, how about just 17? That sort of thing.
I want to comment on PFlaw 317's comment. City barbecue is solid. Their banana pudding is good. We're talking about how, sitcom episodes, City barbecue is like the Seinfeld episode about the woman who's two-faced. City barbecue in the store is amazing. It's really good. City barbecue catering that sits around for an hour, not as good. Their banana pudding is good either way. I wish Ohio State once upon a time did have some City barbecue catering. The mac and cheese traveled well. The beef traveled well. The pork would dry out. And then we always seem to end up with green beans. And that's just, we don't need to be serving green beans in a press box.
So anyway, sponsors, Kevin's not on most of these episodes, so you could still feel safe sponsoring the show.
I gave them all sorts of props. Hater.
So the game was tied 76-76 with 2 minutes to go in the final overtime.
Do you remember the Big East tournament game between Syracuse and UConn that went 6 overtimes?
No.
Is that, come on, like at some point, this is like one of those sitcom jokes that's funny, and then it gets tired, and then it gets funny again. Like, we have the opportunity for this to circle back. Like every other overtime is going to be funny, and the one between it is going to be annoying, but then it's going to be funny again. Like that's.
I'm just concerned about missing the call.
Wow, I don't think that the call is going off.
Have we gotten an update?
I would check my emails. Mark, no, this isn't the Food Network, but this is what happens when we're waiting for a basketball game to finish, and we don't want to burn all of our football content right now at this point. So,
yes, we're gonna end up, the podcast version of this is going to start whenever the show starts. So we're believe it or not, this is not our A material. If you can believe that. So just wait till you see what you're in store for when the college football playoff selection show starts.
I think this is Kevin's A material.
Well, I mean, you and me, Kevin's not really canon on these shows. See, right there, he's not even there anymore.
Kevin's like Poochie the dog.
Kevin died on his way back to his home planet of Pickerington. R.I.P.
Oh yeah, no, Drew Rittberger, you're telling me I don't get this content on Spotify? You will not get this content on Spotify.
So now that Kevin's not here,
this is Patreon only.
Now that Kevin's not here, I'm just going to punch through all the Pro Tom comments. So thank you, Glasswing Butterfly, South Campus person 2. What? The only South Campus, the only campus there is, if you ask
Please,
me.
let's not encourage the
And now
criminals.
Tom is done punching through all the pro Tom comments, and there we go.
So I literally I don't know what I should be doing. Obviously, they're not going to go to the phone call right now, but I don't know when that will be. I guess as soon as Boo is done talking, I'll jump off, assuming we get to Boo at some point this evening.
Worst case scenario, we do get access to a transcript, so it's not like it's going to be missed. So,
and we can. And here's the thing: what I would do is I would throw the. You're gonna see him on TV when he's talking about it. So as soon as he pops off TV, you can probably go do your call. But yeah, and frankly, if this game goes like one more overtime, we might not stick around to find out what Boo had to say. We might.
The good news is Kentucky does not have the ball, and they're down 2. So,
Edward, I don't know why Ohio State would exclude the Michigan band from being inside the stadium. I mean,
I can't remember a band being excluded, because that then starts a war back and forth, and that's one of those, you're not going to, unless there is, the last time the Michigan band was here, they started a fight or, littered, or I don't know, like you would have to have some like actual reason other than rivalry to exclude someone from there. Ohio State has chosen to not have its band travel to certain places. This was the first year that the OSU marching band went to Penn State since 2005, I think. So,
it's been a while.
It is. Oh my Lord. Michigan State just had a chance for a ceiling layup and just missed it.
I will say there might be an issue with the band if the bomb sniffing and drug sniffing dogs don't allow them in.
All right, Wingman Ted says we also never heard the parking lot story from, I believe, Penn State. I think, speaking of, do we want to share it?
That
Kevin?
was the story. Kevin? Was the story.
All right, so let's share it before we do the podcast episode.
And now this game's going to end quickly. So yeah.
Well, you listen to Vin Scully for years. Tell a story before the inning ends. Come on, go.
Well,
you're not going to like it if I tell it. So
who's not going to like it? It wasn't my fault.
Depends on who's telling it.
Well, all right. Well, the quick and honest version of this story is that I'm not the best navigator to begin with, and I'm the driver on these trips. So I asked Tony to help me find this parking lot. And you got to remember, Penn State is kind of a rural campus in some regards. There is a town certainly there with State College. And he's like, oh, don't worry. First of all, to hell with Waze. I don't like Waze. I like using Google Maps. Whatever. I don't care. I'll set a pin. Okay, that's fine. So traffic control is nuts. I mean, it's just having to go all over the place. And it's like, well, we're going to find, we're kind of going against traffic at one point. And then we kind of veer off and go like down like this dirt stone road a little bit. It's like, oh, this isn't bad. And then we passed a sign that said, what did the sign say? It said like deer.
It said, it was a bio quarantine area. Please do not pass. And it was like, well, we're already driving down the road and there's not really a place to turn around. So
just keep going.
So we kept going. I mean, and it wasn't like Tony was like, oh, just keep going. It was like, well, we're this far. I mean, we're bound to come out somewhere. So, of course, we start seeing some of these genetically modified super deer, our new deer overlords, as we're going through, and the road keeps getting worse and worse and worse. And now we're driving through a field. And unfortunately, there wasn't like the deer rancher or something to stop us. And we just keep going and going. And I kind of see a road off in the distance. I said, oh, we're going to connect to the road. And then I guess there was like a little bit of like a cliff or something. Like we were never going to make it there. Thankfully, we didn't go over. But Tony's like, well, the pin says we're here. And no, we weren't there.
You have arrived at your destination.
Yeah, we've arrived at our destination, ground zero for deer. And we finally turn around and we had to try and like use the breadcrumbs to get back to the main road.
Follow our tire tracks.
It was something, and we got to we finally found our way to the parking lot that we're supposed to get to, and we had to check ourselves for deer ticks and everything else. And this nice white SUV that we'd rented to take this looked like it had been we'd been mudding and going off-roading because we had. And from that point on, we have not used Tony's Google Maps ever since.
Do you remember the scene in Tommy Boy where they're lost and they're trying to find they're trying to figure out where they are, and David Spade goes, "Okay, where's Moron? Okay, Moron is here." That was basically the two of them in the front seat. I'm just sitting in the back, just absolutely. I deeply regret not having videotaped it, but also we were probably violating some sort of state law and or federal law at that point. So it was like. Yeah, we would have been arrested and taken to deer court. So yes, it was.
Oh dear!
But we got there, so it was fine.
Ended
This
up
is why we
driving
get to games. This is why we get to games 17 hours early. Because
Yeah.
sometimes we end up, in the middle of like J.R.R. Tolkien's Deer Sanctuary.
Remember that scene from
Yes.
what's that movie called? No, but it's like we're driving through farmland, basically, and barns, driving around barns, and like it was yes, Tom. Kevin, remember that scene from Deliverance? Not that scene, the porch scene. Michigan State is going to win this, so this is good news, and this game is going to be over soon, which is even better news.
Maybe they'll just
46
numbers
minutes. 46 minutes into the show, we've watched 12 minutes of basketball action in 46 minutes. This is why I don't like college basketball. That and bad officiating ruining every game.
Oh, geez. But we're almost done.
DK asking one of the toughest questions out there in movie lore: Godfather 1 or Godfather 2?
Got to go Godfather 1.
I think Godfather 2 is more of a masterpiece, but I enjoy Godfather 1 more.
Like to do it without Don Corleone in there, like the older version. Like I think you've got to have what's his face, and Robert De Niro is great as the younger Don Corleone, Marlon Brando. But like the garden scene with his grandkid when he dies, the heart attack or whatever, like all of that's not or just Godfather 1 because of Marlon Brando. But I do like why are we fouling down 7 with 2 seconds?
Kentucky is fouling down 7 points with 2 seconds left. Why? What is wrong? Why do you not understand math?
It just means more.
No, it just means more basketball, which means less.
But the Godfather saga, when they run it all chronologically, is if you've got an afternoon to kill and an evening to kill, and you're not going to do anything, you can just set it and forget it. I've never seen Godfather 3, though.
Jakob wants to know, in my hockey days, was I a skill guy or more of an enforcer / goon? I didn't play like to the level where you were having like fights in games or anything like that, but I was a defenseman, so more of the latter than the former.
All right, let's get this game out of here. Okay.
Sounds like someone needs to start a podcast.
That's right. Let's do this. Let's get it started. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly Podcast. I am Tony Gerdeman, here as always with Tom Orr and also with Kevin Noon, here as we are live to watch and react to the college football playoff rankings release. Tom, how's it going?
Tony, excited to get started and talk and maybe answer some questions. And, are we 49 minutes into our live stream because the basketball game before the thing went 2 overtimes? I don't know. Who's to say, Tony? I don't know.
Kevin, how are you doing this fine evening of the start of the show?
Yes, I guess the show has just started. We have not been here for 49 minutes and 30 seconds at this point because of the basketball game, but I'm excited to see these college football playoff rankings and discuss them and listen to you say, "Hey, boo," several times on the rest of the show.
Hey, boo. And of course, we're talking to Tom Izzo after the game because why not? As we all sit here at ESPN and wait patiently, some of us impatiently, just waiting
Hey,
and waiting for the rankings to be released for a bunch of rankings that really, I think we know what most of them are going to be. And last week was not controversial. So I'm not expecting controversy this week. That would be out of character, frankly, if we see some of that. And really, I don't know what kind of shenanigans they can pull at this point because things are pretty cut and dry, I think. But we'll see. And Tom, are you expecting any shenanigans?
I think the shenanigans, boy, she is just keeps asking questions. You think she's asking about his speech to the club football team? Wow, was it upsetting that your speech was not? Was it upsetting that your speech was so bad that they lost by 30 points to Ohio State club football team, coached by the great James Grega? I don't know. Maybe I don't know.
Couldn't
I have
be
the
me.
TV muted. I have the TV muted, but yeah, I think the shenanigans that are going to get people riled up tonight are where the SEC teams are. Georgia's going to be number 1. Tennessee's probably number 5. I think there's a real possibility we're looking at Tennessee 5, LSU 6, Alabama 7, or something like that. And that I think is going to be when you have USC behind all of those teams, and then you functionally are locking in one and probably, quite possibly, 2 SEC teams to the playoff. I think that will be what annoys people tonight. That's just. We'll see where USC is, but I think there's a real possibility you've got 4 SEC teams ahead of USC.
USC this weekend playing UCLA. See how that goes for them. I think it's time to start giving them a little bit more respect. They have 1 loss. It's this late in the season. Mm-hmm. Alabama has functionally no shot at the playoffs. So it's okay to start putting teams that do have a shot ahead of them.
And, here's the thing with USC. Even if they're number 8 right now, they have 2 difficult games coming up and then a Pac-12 championship game, which is going to be a 3rd difficult game. So you got at UCLA, then you got Notre Dame, then you got Oregon, Utah, whoever it is in the Pac-12 championship game. So they will, if they win out, they will end up ahead of, Alabama or whatever. But that's people will be annoyed by that today.
We usually go like an hour and a half in this show. And I'm wondering, is that an hour and a half from the second start or the first start? Who's to say? We'll figure that out as we go. But I right now, Tom and Kevin, I think we have 9 teams that are still in the playoff hunt. Like all heck would have to break loose for Alabama to get in there, I believe. And you would need functionally only 1 or 2 undefeated teams and everybody else to have 2 losses. You need Alabama. You basically need only 3 teams that don't have 2 losses, I think, to get Alabama in there. You need to have a 2-loss team has no choice but to be put in there. And I think that's where Alabama is now. That can happen based on the difficulty of a lot of the schedules. You mentioned USC schedule. They could finish with 3 losses before they're done because of who they have. And they're not alone. TCU is at Baylor this week. Then they'll have to play somebody in the Big 12 championship game. They could conceivably end up with 2 losses. Can Iowa State sneak up and bite them in the season finale? Maybe. But I'm interested to see if UNC has any more respect or if they're still, they were 15 last week. They held on and beat Wake Forest this weekend. And maybe that moves them up. It's at some point, if they win out, they have to be in. And I don't care about Tennessee in that regard because UNC will have done it. They'll have beaten Clemson. They will have an offense that is exciting to watch, unlike Clemson. And so I think we have to keep an eye on UNC, but UNC is also a team that could lose to just about anybody they play, except for Georgia Tech, who they play this weekend.
Yeah, Georgia Tech is going to play college football playoff contenders the next 2 weeks. Probably not going to go great for them. They get Georgia the week after this in clean old-fashioned hate, and that's going to not be great. I think what's interesting to me about the North Carolina discussion is they were 7 spots behind Alabama last week, something like that. And before last week, Alabama's resume consisted of a 1-point win at Texas, They beat Arkansas, but Arkansas had just lost to Liberty, so okay. They beat Texas A&M, who everyone has beaten Texas A&M. They beat Mississippi State, who's falling out of the rankings, and now they won at Ole Miss last week. But really, that's it. They're going to have one ranked win over Ole Miss. Then they play Austin Peay this week, Auburn next week. Their resume is the resume of it's like Cincinnati's resume last year. It's like, oh well, you had the one ranked win against the good team, and that's it. But it's Alabama, so you have to look past the resume. You have to look to the fact that they're Alabama, so therefore you have to give them a lot more credit. I don't know that their resume is materially better than North Carolina's is going to be if North Carolina wins out. But the fact that the committee has them spaced out so much, that tells me that the committee is not really seriously looking at North Carolina at all. Because North Carolina, I mean, when they pad their resume out, North Carolina with whatever's left on their schedule, there's not much left. They have, I'm just pulling it up right now,
Georgia Tech and North Carolina State.
Are they a top four? If they win out, are they a top four team with no defense?
I don't think they're going to be. And here's the thing: they don't have a great what's their best win this year? I mean, they beat Pitt. They lost to Notre Dame. They don't have any ranked wins. They're going to play Georgia Tech. They're going to play North Carolina State, who just lost, and then you're going to play Clemson. You're going to have one. You're going to play Clemson, and that's going to be your one ranked win. And so, I mean, you probably should be ahead of Notre Dame at that, or ahead of Alabama at that point, because you have one ranked win, but you at least have that extra data point. But I think people are going to look at the Alabama as like, well, in the SEC West. So, I mean, everyone knows what the SEC West means. It's like, look at their schedule. They didn't actually beat anyone great this year. But it just looked where the gap between Alabama and North Carolina right now, to me, strongly suggests that North Carolina is not getting in no matter what, even if they maybe should in certain circumstances.
We will see here shortly. I am hoping they just start running through this.
Well, they got like a
we don't need to wait.
This thing's
a 3-minute commercial. So we are waiting for this to finally begin at 10 o'clock. Good thing we went live at 9.
Yeah. Good. Team spotlight, notable results. This is important. Always. I have this thing. I have this on mute, so all I can tell from Kirk Herbstreit's face is there has not been an earthquake yet where he is. That's all I can tell you so far. Back to you.
And if you don't understand that reference, Google Kirk Herbstreit earthquake. And as you're Googling Kirk Herbstreit, earthquake will populate as one of the choices. And that was what, Oklahoma State, I believe he was at when.
Yes.
I think fracking, man. There we go.
All right. Number 25, Cincinnati. Number 24. And North Carolina State at number 24 is, I'm sorry, you cannot tell me that Boo Corrigan is not putting his thumb on the scale for North Carolina State, who just got blasted and is still number 24. Number 23, Oregon State. Number 22, Oklahoma State. Number 21, Tulane.
Good news for North Carolina.
State. Oh. Yeah, 7-3 North Carolina State. Here are their losses. They just lost to Boston College, who is like in the conversation for worst Power 5 teams, and they lost to them at home. They lost to Syracuse, which looks terrible now. They lost to Clemson. Their best win is they beat a bowl eligible UConn team.
24 is a joke. I mean, it's
they beat Virginia Tech, who's terrible, by 1. They beat Wake Forest. They beat Wake Forest 30-21. I guess that's the big win they're hanging their hat on. Next batch, number 20 UCF, number 19 Florida State, number 18 Notre Dame, only up 2 spots. I'm a little surprised by that. Number 17 Washington, up 8 spots after beating Oregon. Number 16 UCLA. I'm a little surprised with Notre Dame. I mean, they got jumped by Washington because they had 3 teams ahead of them that lost. Washington jumps ahead of Notre Dame.
Florida State on Notre Dame's heels is a little bit much for me.
Yeah.
But Florida State's win over LSU keeps looking better and better.
Oh, you know what? NC State beat Florida State. That's what's keeping them up there. This is like one of those Ouroboros where the snake is eating its tail. All right, we'll get to it in a minute. 15 Kansas State, 14 Ole Miss drops all of 3 spots after losing at home. 12 and North Carolina, 13 North Carolina, 12 Oregon, 11 Penn State. Penn State up 3 spots. That is great news for Ohio State. Yeah, boy, Oregon dropping 6 spots after losing to a team ranked 5 spots behind them, and Ole Miss dropping 3 spots. I mean, I guess I don't know. Oregon dropping 6 spots seems pretty harsh compared to how some of these other teams have dropped after. Like NC State dropped 3 spots after losing to
No, they dropped
Boston.
8.
They dropped 8?
8.
Okay. Well, then they were too high last week. That's what that tells me.
But yes.
Yeah, the ACC seems like it's getting a lot of respect that's based on mumble, voice trails off.
Interesting to see where Clemson and Alabama are in relation to each other.
I bet Clemson's 10. Nope.
Utah.
10 is Utah. All right. All these Pac-12 teams are kind of right in the range where it's like, oh, look, you're all so good. None of you are going to make the playoffs, but wow, look at you, big
job.
boy. Number 10, number
Good
13,
you.
12. Wow.
We're going to put these rankings on the fridge.
All grown up.
It's probably Clemson coming up.
Yeah, it's got to be Clemson next.
Yeah.
Yep, number 9, Clemson. So who's left? We've got
Alabama, USC, LSU.
Alabama, USC, LSU, Tennessee, Ohio State, Georgia, Michigan, and TCU are left.
I'm building these graphics, but the weird numbers on here, I'll have them in a minute.
The numbers go in a very predictable pattern every week. They count from 25 to 1. That's the
17, 2, 4, 9.
No, the fact is that in order to do this in as few boards as possible, we're doing 8 a page. And it doesn't do me any good to put up the bottom 8 at this point as we're talking about the top 8.
Gotcha.
All right, number 8, Alabama. Okay, so that's interesting. Number 8, Alabama. So USC's ahead of Alabama. So
Which
USC
is
will probably be 7.
the same as the AP poll right now. Alabama is 8, USC is 7.
And what is the spot where you go, okay, these teams do not deserve to be in the playoff? Because I feel like that line to me is anyone above Alabama, you think you can make a case for this team deserves to be in the playoff, and Alabama and below is probably there's not a meaning. I think that's the line right there.
Has there been we're going to reveal the top 7 after this break. Has there been a one-loss conference champ, Power 5 conference champ that has been left out before?
2018 Ohio State.
That was a bad loss, though. You're right.
That was a bad loss. And USC's loss was to Utah, right? Am I remembering that correctly? I believe that is correct. USC's loss was to
Utah, 43-42.
Yeah, and on
Number
the
10,
road,
Utah.
1-point loss. Yeah, that to me is that's a forgivable loss. I think what's holding USC back a little bit right now is their schedule is so backloaded, where they have their 3 toughest games on their schedule are at least 3 of the 4 toughest games of their schedule are still to come, because they beat Rice at Stanford, they beat Fresno State, 1 at Oregon State, which Oregon State is a ranked win now. That's a good win. All right, now we're getting into the top 6. Georgia number 1, real unsurprising. So to continue the USC schedule, they beat Arizona State, they beat Wazoo, lost by 1 at Utah, 1 at Arizona, 1 against Cal, and beat Colorado. So they have a very backloaded schedule. Ohio State number 2, not a big surprise. Michigan number 3, not a big surprise. TCU should be number 4.
Mm-hmm.
I think the only drama left is, will number 6 be LSU or will number 6 be USC? What
I don't
do
think you need to. I don't think you need to put USC there yet because it is backloaded. They will get there if they win.
Mm-hmm.
I think if they want to show that LSU is a legitimate playoff contender by winning out, and they don't project, you might want to have them 6 just to reiterate that fact. And they were 7 last week behind Oregon. Oregon loses, you move 1 up. Now, if this is LSU here,
Yeah, well, that would be. And
Tennessee
it could
beat
be.
LSU, so
Yeah, Tennessee is number 5. Yeah, yeah. I think 6-7 is kind of the interesting thing now. And LSU, just to remind everyone, we just talked about USC's remaining schedule. LSU's remaining schedule is not very hard. It's UAB at Texas, but then they have to play Georgia in the SEC championship game. So
Texas A&M.
Yeah. Sorry, I said UAB, Texas A&M, and then Georgia. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and Texas A&M almost beat Alabama, so I don't think it's a sure win for LSU, but it would be hilarious to watch LSU at 9-3, lose to A&M and then go win the SEC championship. And then what do you do with Georgia or Tennessee there? Like, can you let Georgia lose and get in?
I mean, you can't. Yeah, LSU is number 6, and then so number 7 is going to be USC. Here's the problem. I mean, right now it looks like they're going to be somewhat beholden to head-to-head, because if Tennessee's ahead of LSU because Tennessee beat LSU, if LSU has the extra data point and wins the SEC and beats Georgia, then they have a better win than anything Tennessee has, so they can jump them there. I don't think there's a real case for jumping Tennessee over. If Georgia loses the SEC championship game, what's the case for jumping Tennessee over Georgia? They played. We saw what happened,
right.
and Georgia completely walloped them.
Head-to-head hasn't mattered. It doesn't always matter when they start comparing teams.
Yeah, but I mean, what's Georgia's best win is Tennessee. Tennessee's best win is, LSU, I guess.
I think what hurts Tennessee there is the fact that when asked last week, Buc Oregon said they did consider both the Oregon win, Georgia win over Oregon, and Georgia win over Tennessee to be like blowouts. Like basically, like Tennessee was not in that game. So when you do the head-to-head, and head-to-head doesn't always win out, as I said, but when it's a blowout, I'm guessing the tendency there is to stick with the result of that game, especially if there's no bad loss clouding things.
Rick Sanchez says that Bowling Green is tearing up OSU's second best win, which they're not playing Notre Dame tonight. So you see the rankings on the screen. Yeah. Yeah, and there's your top 7: Georgia number 1, Ohio State 2, Michigan 3, TCU 4, Tennessee 5, LSU 6, and USC 7. And as Phenom Unit says, they're setting up SC to get it if they win out. And yeah, absolutely they are, because if USC wins out, they're going to have a win over UCLA, who's ranked. They're going to have a win over Notre Dame, who's ranked, and they're going to have a win over whoever comes out of whoever the other team in the Pac-12 championship game is, which is Utah or Oregon or Washington, whoever that is, and they're all ranked. So that's going to be 3 more ranked wins. That's going to be, if USC wins out, they get in. I just don't think they're going to win out. Lisa Sims wants to know what's going to happen between Georgia, Tennessee, and LSU. Not all 3 can get in. I mean, what do you see happening there, Tony? Georgia, Tennessee, LSU, who gets in and who's out?
If everybody, I'm sorry, I'm getting text about Boo. What was the question, Tom? I'm paying attention now.
It's on the screen. What's going to happen between Georgia, Tennessee, and LSU? Not all 3 can get in.
It depends on what happens with USC, and I still think it depends on what happens with the ACC, because I think the champions of those 2 conferences, if they have 1 loss, Tennessee is out, unless TCU happens to lose, and then they become a 1-loss champion. But these 1-loss conference champs, I'm sorry, Tennessee, you beat Alabama, that's fine. Alabama is, they're not part of the picture. They're not part of the playoff picture. They're a good win. They're a non-playable character. They're basically a good win for some teams right now. So I think if Georgia wins out, obviously they're in. Tennessee needs help, and Tennessee needs help from Utah to beat USC, or and Notre Dame to beat USC, get that loss. And It is a concern how low the ACC teams are, and you're looking at, well, should Clemson climb? They only beat a number 13 or 12 UNC, who's going to drop down to like 18 or 19 with a loss in the ACC championship game. So that becomes, and to be a two-loss team and you've dropped that far, that's not a great win. And Clemson would drop to, I don't know, 13, 14, something like that. And, can you put North Carolina in on the basis of one loss and their best win is over North Carolina? And you have the extra data point. And that's just one piece. As you're comparing the two teams, Tennessee and North Carolina, you're like, well, Tennessee has this. They've got the wins, but they don't have as many wins. They've got better wins, but North Carolina has a conference championship. Well, yeah, but how much do you value that? There's like 4 things that the committee values, and you can value it any way you want. Like, I value conference championships. I know it's one quarter of our, 1/4 of what we do and what we look at, but I only attribute 1% of my value to it, and that's what they can do. And I give 99% value to beating Alabama.
Well, and if you look at where they have,
I'm going to pause,
North,
Tom. I'm going to jump off now. Okay.
Okay. All right. So, to pick up Tony's point there, I think you have to look at the ACC and where they have those teams, Clemson and UNC. Neither of them is anywhere close to the top, the top 4. Clemson's the top one at 9, and UNC is at 12, 13, something like that this week. It just, neither of them have a big game coming up. UNC's 13. Let's get the super chat from Mike Farino quick. How is Penn State behind Utah? Utah lost to an unranked bad Florida team and lost by multiple scores to UCLA, who's out of the top 15. I think the question is, who has Penn State beaten? And Penn State's, big out of conference win is Auburn, which is okay. And, maybe, if Auburn beats, Alabama in a couple weeks, then okay, that win looks a lot bigger. But their wins are Purdue, who's unranked, Ohio University, who's unranked, at Auburn, who's unranked, Central Michigan, unranked, Northwestern, who's unranked, Minnesota, who's unranked, Indiana, who's unranked, and Maryland, who's unranked. And the remaining teams they play are Rutgers and Michigan State. The best win there is Purdue. I mean, Purdue's, maybe Purdue finishes in the top 25, maybe if they win their last couple of games and they win the Big Ten West. But Utah has a win over USC. That's what has Utah ahead of Penn State right now. Just they're not just looking at losses. They also look at wins and who has a good win and who has the best win. And between those two teams, Utah has a better win than Penn State does.
I want to get back to the other question, Lisa's question about Georgia and LSU and Tennessee. And Tennessee is kind of screwed right now. I mean, they've got to hope that LSU loses and is just removed from the equation. That's going to really be the only thing that's going to open the door, because if LSU beats Georgia, is Georgia in a position to where even a one-loss Georgia gets in as a 4? And the SEC is by far the deepest conference this year. I mean, just in terms of, or the top conference in terms of its top teams. So you would have LSU get in and you would have Georgia get in. So Tennessee is blocked out because you're not going to have 3 teams regardless. I don't care how great a conference is. You're just not going to have 3 of the 4 coming from the one conference. So Tennessee needs LSU to be removed from the equation and then still has to hope that some of these other conferences fall by the wayside.
Yeah. And, Georgia, I feel like Georgia is probably almost guaranteed to be in because they have the win over Tennessee and, a win that the committee talked about as a blowout win last week. So, anything that's any kind of decision between Georgia and Tennessee is going to go Georgia's way. They also have that win over Oregon week 1. That's a game that looms real, real large because if you didn't have that game, if that game hadn't happened and it was, not 49-3, Oregon only has 1 loss right now and they're still in that kind of top 5 to 10 range. And Georgia's hanging their whole resume on that one Tennessee game, but the Oregon game happened, so that's where they are.
Yeah, so there's we can sit there and say there's a lot of football left to be played, but I guess if you're an SEC team, there's not, unless you're Georgia and LSU, who will play in Atlanta in the SEC championship game, because we know that this week is got a name that if I want to keep a family-friendly rating on this channel, I can't necessarily say. I'll just use chicken and then bleep out the second half of it. There are a lot of those games against Merchant Marines, Hamburger University and some things along those lines. And then you have a lot of non-conference games for schools like, South Carolina, Clemson play, Georgia Tech, some of those things. I mean, you obviously do have the Egg Bowl with Ole Miss and Mississippi State, but neither of those teams are really in the equation now at this point. Ole Miss, as we've mentioned earlier, only dropped to 14th or whatever. But I think that the picture is getting clear as we're seeing more and more conferences. We know what their championship game is going to look like. The Big Ten being different because it's really down to 2 teams in the East, and it's down to 5 of the 7 teams in the West because the Big Ten West is drunk.
Yeah, the wild thing about the Big Ten West is no one in the Big Ten West controls their own destiny. That's one of those things that's seems
a difficult thing to do.
I was going to say that seems almost impossible to believe this close to the end of the year that no one controls their own destiny. But there are sets of results that no matter who wins 2 games in a row to end the season, there are sets of results that would have someone else go to the Big Ten championship game, which is crazy. But I think the Big Ten, it feels like you've got 2 contenders, Michigan and Ohio State. The Big 12 is very clearly it is TCU or it is no one. The Pac-12 at this point is USC or it is no one. And if USC loses, they're out. If TCU loses, they're out. I think Ohio State and Michigan both are still in the conversation, even with a loss, especially if it's a close loss, if it's a 31-27 kind of game. I think you could make an argument for either one. Right now, Ohio State being ahead of Michigan, Ohio State has probably like one more good quality win than Michigan. Ohio State's probably in a little bit better shape to get in if they do lose that game. Because if Michigan loses that game, you're hanging your whole resume on Penn State, and Illinois is not ranked anymore, so that win's not going to do any real good for them if and when they beat Illinois this weekend. And then, the other piece of that is odds are if you're the number 4 seed, you're playing Georgia. Ohio State, Georgia is going to get massive TV ratings. Ohio State or Georgia, Michigan is going to be the Michael J. Fox scene from Back to the Future. Like, hey, I've seen this one. It's like, how could you see this one? It's new. It's like, it's a rerun. I'm like,
I just thought you were going to go for something like Teen Wolf 2.
No, that would be Jason Bateman, not Michael J. Fox.
I avoided that one.
Yeah, he's
come a long way, to get to Ozark from all of that.
Yeah, and there are questions about will Tennessee jump TCU, and Jordan has it correct here. Tennessee has nobody left on their schedule. Well, TCU has 3 decent games left. Tennessee has I don't remember who they play this weekend, but it's no one. And then they play
South Carolina or something.
They play South Carolina this weekend and Vanderbilt. So there's not a resume win there, and they're not going to be able to get into this SEC championship game. So TCU, on the other hand, they obviously will have the Big 12 championship game, which is that's going to be probably K-State, but they also have 2 more games before then, and those are at Baylor and Iowa State, which are neither of those are great teams, but those are also 2 teams that are better than the teams that Tennessee's going to play. Plus, they'll have that extra data point against a ranked Kansas State in the Big 12 championship game, or a ranked Oklahoma State in the Big 12 championship game, whoever that ends up being. So, I don't think there's going to be an argument for Tennessee to be ahead of TCU if TCU wins out. TCU is already ahead and is going to have a better resume, assuming they win out. Now, all it takes is them losing 1 game, and then all of a sudden, then TCU with 1 loss is out. USC with 1 loss is out. If Tennessee somehow loses, they're out. If LSU does not beat Georgia, they're out. I mean, if Georgia wins the SEC championship and Ohio State beats Michigan close, or vice versa, Michigan beats Ohio State close, and TCU loses, and then it's probably Georgia 1, the winner of Ohio State, Michigan 2, Tennessee 3, and the loser of Ohio State, Michigan 4. I mean, that's probably how that shakes out. And that's like very possible that you have, there has been the talk about the 3 SEC teams being in the field. I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think that they're going to do that, because I think that number one is a crappy TV product that's not going to appeal to anyone outside of the banjo belt. But number two, it just, odds are you're going to have, unless Ohio State or Michigan just smokes the other one, I think you're going to have a very, very compelling argument for both of them to get in. And if it's the SEC versus Big Ten Invitational in the college football playoff, get ready for some narratives to be shaped over the next year. Because, I mean, can you imagine the discourse if one conference goes 2-0 against the other in the semifinals?
Oh,
Good Lord. Although
it would be something.
Go ahead.
I was just because it would be something to see Michigan, Ohio State out at SoFi, part 2 out for all of the marbles. I mean, and that's saying that, somebody's able to trip up Georgia in the semifinals or whatever, and to get to that point. But, everybody's so concerned about what it would look like going divisionless if you had to play Ohio State, Michigan twice, and more namely in back-to-back weeks. Well, this wouldn't be in back-to-back weeks, but you'd be playing them again. And certainly a place where weather would not be an issue.
Well, and boy, Ohio State versus Michigan in the national championship game. We have seen some big Ohio State Michigan games over the years, but man, I can't even imagine an Ohio State Michigan national championship game. That would just be, we would just go straight from the semifinal game in Phoenix to Los Angeles at that point, because there's no point in doing anything else. No one's going to want to talk. It would be like the Truman Show. It would just be us 24 hours a day for the 9 or 10 days between. Oh my goodness, that would be incredible. Mike Freno, a little context to the conversation that we picked up that we were chatting about earlier. We were discussing who they would have at 3 or 4, Tennessee/TCU. They won't want a UT-UGA rematch for round 1. I think they keep UGA at 1 and Tennessee jumps TCU. I think that's something that, if they were trying to set that up, I think they would have Tennessee ahead of TCU right now, because if you have, they have stated that they're not, their official position is we're not going to reshuffle teams to avoid rematches. So if you have number 3 TCU, let's just say it's status quo going into the semifinals, and it's, TCU has continued winning, and Ohio State and Michigan, whoever the winner is, wins by a bunch. So it's number 3 TCU and number 4 Tennessee. Like, what's the case for jumping Tennessee over TCU? They've already told you, here's what the case. Here's what we view these teams as, and their resumes as. TCU being ahead of Tennessee. In that case, Tennessee, if we're having that conversation, it means LSU has lost. So LSU moves down the rankings. LSU has lost to Georgia. So that is not some like incredible signature win in this scenario. Alabama hasn't done anything to move way up the rankings. Georgia will have wins over Tennessee, a blowout win over Tennessee, and a win over LSU. TCU will have added another ranked win against Kansas State in this scenario, and or Oklahoma State, whoever it is they play in the Big 12 championship game, and Tennessee will have been sitting at home. So that's one of those things where I think the committee can sort of finagle things now. They could mess with things now to set that up and avoid that matchup, but they haven't done what they would need to do in order to do that. If Tennessee was 4 right now and TCU was 5, then then they would have the option of jumping TCU over Tennessee after the Big 12 championship game to avoid that rematch. But they haven't done that. They have TCU ahead of Tennessee. So I have all along thought they were going to kind of put their thumb on the scale to avoid the rematch, but they're not doing the things now that they would have to do in order for that to happen.
Well, if Tennessee moves up for beating South Carolina, the fix is in kind of at that
Mhm.
point, that they're trying to sit there and put the thumb on the scale at that point, because Tennessee cannot do anything at this point to strengthen its resume. The only thing that Tennessee can hope for is for others around it to fall into the ash bin, and in doing so, they move up by default. There's nothing Tennessee can do to improve itself. It could beat South Carolina by 11 million points. It could beat Vanderbilt by 12 million bajillion points. It's not going to do anything because there's nothing left. There's no red meat left on that schedule. So there's nothing they can do. And Tony has just given us the thumbs up. So he is now back with us with insight from Boo.
Hey, Boo. Tony, you're muted.
Sorry, I was on a phone call.
Who was it?
Yes,
Was it Boo?
it was Boo.
Did you tell him I said hi?
No, Tom, we don't talk about you. It's a very short call because obviously everybody wanted to get back to basketball. And a lot of, surprisingly, a lot of Ohio State, Michigan questions this week. So that is good for us. And then the first question right out of the gate was, how does the committee view Ohio State versus Michigan right now? And it's the same answer they've been giving all season long. And, two well-balanced teams, both in the top 10 offensively and defensively. Ohio State has the win over Notre Dame, which stands out for the committee. And then our buddy Pat Murphy asks later on, like, is it simple to just say that Michigan's non-conference schedule is the differentiator? And Boo took issue. He's like, we don't believe there's anything simple about it. Okay, don't use the S word around the committee. All right, this is difficult stuff.
Well,
but
our buddy Pat Murphy apparently not taking into account bowl eligible UConn, sir. Put some respect on Jim Elmore's name.
But it was funny because Boo was like, we don't believe there's anything simple about it. We look at this and then we take this into account and we value this and we do look at this. And then he's like, that being said, the strength of schedule is different. So it is as simple to just say
right
that the strength of schedule is the issue.
That's just such a perfect encapsulation of this whole thing. Like, get a little bit angry and a little bit irritated about, well, listen, there's nothing easy about this. Now, one of their numbers is way better than the other number, and that's really the difference. But it's not simple. Like, we have to sit in this hotel room. We have to get the Marriott points for this whole weekend because we watch all the games, and then we're sitting in this room. Do you know how many Marriott points we got this weekend? It was a lot, and we sat in this conference room for a long time. So, sir, it comes down to more than just looking at strength of schedule. But really, when you look at the strength of schedule, that has to be one of the big points of differentiation there.
And there are only 40 restaurants around here that we can get food catered in from. So, I mean, our choices are limited, but we really do like Johnny Carino's the best.
How close are Michigan and Ohio State to Georgia? The quote was, the committee believes there's been separation with Georgia. Right now, it's the balance of Georgia's offense and defense. The first thing he said is the wins over Tennessee and Oregon, Georgia's top 10 defense, and the win this weekend at Mississippi State. And the quote was, in the eyes of the committee, that's a separator for us. So good win at the Klanga being one of the reasons that Georgia has separated. But really, you could just say wins over Tennessee and Oregon, and who can argue, especially against Ohio State and Michigan, who, Ohio State's best wins are Notre Dame and Penn State, and neither one of those, well, I guess now the one over Oregon, Penn State is higher than Oregon. So Penn State being a better win than Oregon, but Georgia's win much more impressively over Oregon than Ohio State's win over Penn State. Any discussion about giving TCU a bump over Michigan? And they looked at all four teams at the top. They did it several times, and every time they came up with the same four in the same order. So, no, not really. Doesn't matter because that's all going to shake out anyway. Are they looking at OSU's injuries when they evaluate the situation? And they say when they evaluate the games, they don't project about who's not there, who won't be there. But when they're watching the games, they know who's out and who should be playing and who isn't. So they do understand that. I wanted to ask if, again, we talked a couple weeks ago, do you still understand how windy It wasn't Northwestern. Have you guys still taken that into account? The last question was from CFP Reddit asking about UCF being ranked below Florida State. And Boo laid the hammer down. He's like, well, Florida State has the win over LSU, and Florida State beat Louisville, and UCF lost to Louisville. It was like he was waiting for that question, and he just hammered the poor guy from Reddit. And really, that was the gist of it. Like
Thumbs down.
Last week there wasn't a much controversy. This week there's even less. And as there's, I was going to ask about North Carolina, but they ended the call before I could get all of my apps situated. But the fact that nobody is asking about them or the ACC, nobody asked about the ACC, makes me the interest level, the interest level that the nation has for the ACC is not going to help their one-loss conference champion situation.
Well, I think we got sort of started down this road a couple times and then kept getting having other stuff come up. But just real quickly, the 5 Power 5 conferences, like there's not a non-power team that's in the conversation this year, so that you can just sort of set to the side. The Big 12, it's TCU or no one. If TCU wins out, they're in. If TCU loses a game, they're out. USC is the only Pac-12 team that I think at this point has a chance. They have 3 tough games left. If they win those 3, they're probably in. If they lose any of them, they're out. And then the ACC, Clemson is at 9. They're not going to pick up a great win between now and the end of the season, because if the committee thinks North Carolina is really the 13th best team in the country right now and has not made any inclination, any indication they're going to move them up, here's the remaining schedule for Clemson: Miami, who's garbage; South Carolina, who's garbage; and number 13 North Carolina. So even if you beat number 13 North Carolina, how much credit are you getting for that? You're going to have, Ohio State's probably going to play a team that's not as good as them, but you're not competing against Ohio State or Michigan, whoever that is. Are you going to jump? Is an Ohio State team that loses close to Michigan, or a Michigan team that loses close to Ohio State, are they going to fall so much that Clemson, with one win over a 13 to 15 kind of team, is going to move up? I think Clemson's functionally just about out. North Carolina is definitely out, because they're not jumping from 13 to 4 with the teams they have left in their schedule.
The irony,
and you've got the SEC teams. There are enough SEC teams who are just going to be sitting there, Alabama and Tennessee, between Clemson or North Carolina and the top 4, that those teams aren't going to lose because they're not playing anyone. So I don't think the ACC has a path to the playoff. Do you?
I think if it comes down to the ACC and Alabama, it has to go to the ACC. Tennessee
have to go to get Alabama. I mean, Alabama's done. I mean,
what's Alabama going to do? Like, if we're going to talk about the ACC's wins, we have to talk about Alabama's wins, and where are they?
They just beat Ole Miss, who is ranked pretty much exactly where North Carolina is. And the rest of Clemson's wins are, I'm just kind of scrolling through here. They beat Wake Forest, who is Wake Forest ranked this week? No. Right? No. North Carolina State is barely ranked, and they're going to lose to North Carolina, so they'll be out. They beat Florida State, so Florida State's 1 win. Is Louisville going to get in? So you've got,
but they'll have the conference championship over Alabama.
Yeah, maybe.
And one less loss. Like, they have 2 data points over Alabama. I think they have a better shot than Alabama, but that's the sad, funny, ironic thing is Notre Dame, the ACC half-breed type of team, beat both North Carolina and Clemson, and could cost both of them, could cost the ACC the playoffs.
Well, and that's a horrendous data point for the ACC against Ohio State. If Ohio State loses to Michigan, then Ohio State has a head-to-head win over Notre Dame, who beat both of the ACC division champs. Ohio State's resume is better than Clemson's anyway, but that is when they do the head-to-head thing. If it's between Ohio State and Clemson for the number 4 spot, I don't think there's any chance that Clemson wins that. And I don't think there's a chance Clemson jumps ahead of Tennessee. I don't think there's a chance Clemson jumps ahead of LSU. I mean, I don't think there's a way that they get in.
It's a 2007 type of way.
Well, okay. If Purdue wins the Big Ten, and
Yeah.
Super chat from David Greenshield. Have you talked about what happens if LSU wins the SEC? Tony, what happens if LSU wins the SEC?
If LSU wins the SEC, then you will have Ohio State or Michigan at 1, and then are we saying TCU wins out? TCU at 2, and then LSU Georgia. Like, can you put LSU behind Georgia after they beat Georgia? I mean, I guess you can. I guess functionally it doesn't matter. Both those teams are going to be on the road. Just where. Although, do you want Georgia on the road in Georgia?
Well, Georgia's going to be on the road if Georgia's. Yeah, you probably would have to put Georgia 4 because
you get to play Georgia 4 in
Georgia.
Yeah,
well, but in that case, number 1's going to play in the Fiesta Bowl. That's easy because number 1 plays in the Fiesta Bowl, and number 1 in that case, if LSU and Georgia are 3 and 4, number 1 is definitely going to choose to play in the Fiesta Bowl. And then lucky number 2 Tennessee or TCU gets to play either LSU or Georgia in Atlanta. Go with God. Have fun. Have fun storming the castle.
It could have been a Jerry world. I mean, TCU could just make the playoffs in different years, and they would have had a similar situation.
Well,
but I don't think
the committee just keeps screwing them. Did Toledo
what
just
is Tom?
So Ohio University just won their game. So now they just need Toledo to beat Bowling Green. And Toledo just scored a touchdown to tie the game. PAT to come, 52 seconds left.
But it's
Ohio University could be about to clinch a trip to the MAC championship game. It's the biggest story in college football tonight. Let's just talk about this. Back to
Tom. How many MAC championships did Frank Solich win at Ohio?
Rounding up, 0. Yes, the last MAC championship for Ohio University, 1968. They made several MAC championship games. I even attended one of the MAC championship games.
He's out.
He's out. He is out of bounds. So all that means is that's actually bad news from Bowling Green because they're probably going to punch this in anyway, and now Bowling Green's going to have less time.
I don't know who's calling the plays. Banging your head against the wall.
Are they down by 6 or 7?
They're down by 6.
It's 34-28.
Yeah.
Right. Telling me the score 34-28. That's too many numbers. Just tell me 6 or 7.
Anyway, sorry to derail us. Back to college football playoff.
Yeah, if LSU makes the playoffs, functionally it may just replace Tennessee. Like that may all be all that happens is LSU, but also that takes out the Big Ten loser. That's a situation where that could cost Ohio State if they lose to Michigan, because I think you guys have probably talked about it, but Ohio State losing to Michigan gives the Buckeyes are in a better position with a loss than Michigan is because of their win over Notre Dame, and nothing that Michigan has done other than just continue to win. That's why they're there. The top 10 offense, top 10 defense, but with a loss, there's the resume is severely lacking, and it's not even close to Tennessee's resume, and it wouldn't be close to Georgia's or LSU's. So, yeah, Michigan. Obviously, Michigan fans and Michigan believe they're going to win, so it won't matter. But they might still, if they do lose that game, certainly root for Georgia in the SEC championship game.
Yeah, if Michigan
as much as possible at that point.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because if Michigan loses that game, but loses it somewhat close. If Michigan loses by 30 points, they're going to be out, and that is what it is. But if Michigan loses that game and it's a 7-point game, 10-point game, whatever it is, and Georgia wins the SEC championship game, and especially if TCU loses the Big 12, TCU losing the Big 12 would be the most helpful thing for Michigan at that point, because you're going to have, if TCU wins, you're going to have that 4th spot come down to Michigan versus Tennessee, and that's probably not a thing that Michigan's going to want to have be their competition, because Tennessee has the win over Alabama, Tennessee has the win over LSU, and Michigan at that point would have the win over Penn State, and that's kind of it. So, the fact that Illinois has kind of fallen off the table really hurts Michigan, because that had the chance to be a second ranked win, but it's not. So I think in that scenario, first of all, Tennessee probably has a better resume, but also Tennessee is just going to put on a more entertaining football game than Michigan is. So, that's not a tiebreaker, but also what if kind of it is, because the committee doesn't want boring, crappy games on New Year's Eve. And, Michigan is good, but also does not necessarily play the most thrilling style of football. So, Tennessee Ohio State semifinal would be just absolute flames. I would sign me up for that one right now.
And I've mentioned this before, I believe, in the past, but when the Big Ten goes away from divisions, and you have the possibility of Ohio State and Michigan playing the last game of the regular season, then playing in the Big Ten championship game, and then maybe in the first round of the playoffs, 3 games in a row.
It would be amazing to watch Ohio State close the gap with Michigan, just 3 games per year. That would be quite a.
No, postseason games don't count.
Yeah. Ryan Day was asked about that on Tuesday, about the thought of playing back to back, and he's not there yet in terms of thinking about that or what that would be like as Bowling Green lets Toledo score smartly. But we've discussed this over the years about moving that game up into October to avoid the back-to-back, playing in back-to-back weeks. I'll let Kevin go first so that Tom can figure out what he wants to think about that. Kevin, should the game be moved up to October, or even maybe open a season?
No.
The first Thursday of the week?
I mean, it's already going to be such a dramatic turn from how things have been in the first place to potentially play that game twice, thrice, if you will. I don't know. I mean, yes, not back-to-back weeks or back-to-back weeks is just even crazier, but you're still going to have the situation. I go back to Ohio State playing Wisconsin twice in a season, once during the regular season, and there was a little bit of a gap. It was like mid-October, and then it was in the Big Ten championship game. You already have all sorts of, you don't have to use crossover film at that point. You've already played the team. You already know what things look like. I mean, certainly the thing I don't like potentially, if you're going to play a team just back to back, let's just say regular season and then in the Big Ten championship game, is if it's a 12-team playoff and you already kind of know what's going on at that point, do you make a business decision at certain points to try and cook the books on what the brackets could potentially look like? But I think that moving the game is just sacrilegious, and any thoughts of that should sentence you to 20 lifetimes in purgatory.
Tom?
What if we reopened Gitmo for people who suggested moving the Ohio State-Michigan game? Is Gitmo still open? I don't know. Frankly, it doesn't matter. If it is, great, keep it open. If not, reopen it and send the people who suggest moving the Ohio State-Michigan game there.
I wasn't suggesting it. I was asking if it should be suggested. That's all.
Do you want some water, Tony?
Why? No. I don't need any. No, I'm good. I'm good. Thank you very much. No, I'm with you guys. I was just somebody asked me that and asked me to address it and throw it out there, knowing what the answers would be. I just thought maybe you guys had come around. We know Kevin is woke, so thought maybe this would be something. I tried, but I just thought I wanted to see if either of you would allow us to ridicule you. But no, good job. You have both passed the test. You can stay on the show, and as have I. I have also passed the test, because don't move it. And if they play back to back, I don't care. You know what? I'm going to enjoy both. I'm going to cover both. I'm going to talk the heck out of both. I don't. Yeah, we think, or we know, people think that it will diminish the first game because you're playing again. Let's find out. Let's see. I bet nothing is diminished because both games are going to be gigantic, and Do you want to lose one? Go ahead and try to lose one. See if you feel better about it.
Well, this is like you have Christmas with your, your grandparents on your dad's side on one day, and you have Christmas with your grandparents on your mom's side, a few days later. It's like, does that diminish the first Christmas? No. Well, good, great.
As long as I get presents.
Yeah, I mean, we're
the present is the game.
As long as we get to watch Ohio State and Michigan play football, I mean, we're 10 days out at this point from this year's Ohio State Michigan game, and it's already like, why is it not here? Like, what if we just played it this weekend instead? I don't want to wait. Like, let's just play the game. Like, I am perfectly fine with, like, let's find out, and maybe the second one won't be as special as the first one, but you look at Georgia and Alabama played twice last year, and you got different results in those two games.
Mm-hmm.
Alabama and LSU played twice in 2011. You got different results in those two games. I mean, it's not just like foregone conclusion. And then sometimes you can have, Utah and Oregon played twice last year, and it was the same game twice in a row. And it was just like, do you want to watch Oregon get stomped into the ground? Hey, do you want to watch Oregon get stomped into the ground again? That was just the same game twice. But I think I am all for, like, let's not solve a problem that isn't actually a problem yet. Like, let's see how it goes the first time or two, and then if you need to revisit it or whatever. This is like the Big Ten putting Michigan and Ohio State in different divisions to start, because it was like they were going to get more money, and well, guess what? It was, this was going to be a big problem, and then they never played in the conference championship game.
Well,
and the Florida State and Miami were in different divisions in the ACC for like literally the last 15 years, because they wanted to set up a Florida State Miami ACC championship game. How many times has that happened? 0.0.
Well, the thing too is that with the second game, the first game is going to be at either Ohio State or Michigan, then the next game is going to be at an NFL stadium or however they're doing the Big Ten championship game at that point. So Lucas Oil or Ford Field or wherever it is they decide to put it. So, it may not have as much of the game day environment, but still having both the bands there and everything else. I mean, sign me up. Let them, for all of the games, let them both wear their home jerseys too. Let's do that.
There you go. Yeah, that's what you save that for, because I want to see Ohio State and Michigan wear their home jerseys. Do it in the Big Ten championship game if that's what you want, or you do it in the playoffs as we watch Bowling Green making some hay down the field. Prickly pear, once there is no more divisions, will players sit for the more meaningful game? I'll believe it when I see it. Now, Ryan Day did mention, I don't know if he sort of alluded to that, but okay, go be the Ohio State coach. And you know what? We're going to sit CJ Stroud against Michigan this week, because, we know we're going to play them in the Big Ten championship game. We win that, we're in. We know we don't even need to win it. Just go see how that does for your mental health and the thoughts that people have about you and your job security by that's like Woody Hayes with the two airplanes. You know what? Just crash the first one. We don't even need to land it. Just crash it.
I don't think that's exactly what he said. In fact, I'm not sure he said anything, but if he did, I'm not sure that's exactly what he said. David Grinchell with a good point, which is a rematch cost Ohio State the 1975 national championship. Ohio State thumped UCLA in the regular season. I don't remember what the score was, but it was 40-something to 10 or 35 to 10 or something like that. And then had to go play UCLA in the Rose Bowl at the end of that season. They had beaten Michigan already. I believe that was the Mike Lantry year, I think. The two missed field goals for Mike Lantry for Michigan. Ohio State goes out there. All they need to do is just beat the team they've already beat, and then they lose in the Rose Bowl to UCLA. I think that was a pretty close game, 23-20 or something like
17-16?
That was the 1979. That was the 1979 against USC. But yeah, it was the first one was a blowout OSU win, and then they lost the second one. So yeah, you can absolutely get different results. I think Ryan Day is probably a little more of an offensive mastermind than Woody Hayes was, but
12 yards in a cloud of dust. Tom, is it true you can get different results from different matchups? Does that carry from the year before to the following year? Like, so we will get a different result from last year's Michigan game to this year's Michigan game. It will be different. Is that what you're telling me? Because I've heard it's going to be the exact same. Like pretty much everything we saw last year is what we're going to see this year.
Yeah, I'm interested to see. I think you're going to see a slightly different result from the Ohio State offense, but I think you have the opportunity to see a really different result from the Ohio State defense. That's, oh man, Bowling Green's quarterback just got broken. I think you're going to see potentially a significantly different result from the Ohio State defense, because Ohio State defense has a functional defense this year. So I think that might be an interesting thing to keep an eye on. I'm still fascinated by that game. I keep changing my mind on what I think is going to happen. And when I start to feel confident in my answer, then I start getting worried. It's like, all right, what am I not thinking about right now? That just when you think like, oh, that, all right, I think I've got this figured out. It's like, oh, I'm definitely not remembering something right now.
Well, and we've all privately talked about how we're starting to feel about the game, and then had somebody else come up to me at interviews Tuesday and is like, I'm starting to blah, blah, blah. And it's like, this consensus better. I mean, the consensus is a bit of a concern, but I think you see the Ohio State running game getting better or not staying worse. I think is maybe the better thing, that they're actually showing life. And the thing that I keep coming back to is as I look at this, if you look at Ohio State's running game performances from game to game, you'll see those two games against Iowa and Penn State, and clearly they are outliers. But are they? They are outliers, but that shows you what defenses can do to them. So I don't know how much of an outlier they are. It's just like,
oh, Bowling Green.
Oh, jeez. This is great podcasting. Wow.
Bowling
9
Green,
seconds left.
If you don't happen to be watching live with us right now, Bowling Green with like 15 seconds left in the game, we're just trying to get into field goal range, threw a pass, and a guy broke about 4 tackles to get into the end zone with 11 seconds left, score a go-ahead touchdown.
There's going to
be there are some great fans in shock. Oh,
no surrender cobras, but a nice snowy background and everything else. I mean,
stunned Rockets fans.
Wow.
The thing I'm really interested in watching, but you can't take everything from one game and move it to another game, is just what Illinois' run defense is going to be able to do,
and pass defense
against Michigan. Well, how much pass defense do you need based on what you've seen there? And I actually, in the chat earlier today during the Ryan Day presser, I kind of looked up some numbers, and again, total yards, and it is what it is. But Michigan is 94th in passing offense for yards, but 25th in passing efficiency. The point I really was going to make there is that I haven't seen a ton out of J.J. McCarthy, and if Schoonmaker's not healthy, what does that mean? They've already lost Eric All for the season, but I really want to see what the run defense does, how they try to attack Blake Corum. But even a big difference there is Illinois is going to Ann Arbor for that game versus Michigan coming to Columbus. So you're not going to be able to translate everything, and there's not a huge difference in terms of yards allowed between the two run defenses between Illinois and Ohio State. I haven't finished writing everything for Tail of the Tape. I will touch upon some of that there, though.
Yeah,
Yakov says that Desmond Howard just compared J.J. McCarthy to Joe Burrow. So, I mean, they are both quarterbacks.
2016 Joe Burrow?
I mean, I think when I watched the Michigan and the Ohio State games from last week back to back, and I think the thing that jumped out to me the most was Ohio State. The question was, can they run the ball? And for Michigan, the question was, can they throw the ball downfield? And you saw Ohio State run the ball. I still have not seen Michigan throw the ball downfield with any kind of consistency or effectiveness. And they have tried a couple weeks in a row to do that, and it has become very apparent that they cannot do that. And that is a concern. That I think Dave Greenshield says I'm more sold on the Ohio State running game than what I've seen from the Michigan passing game. And I think that's something that you have to, maybe they'll show it this week, but until I see it, I kind of have to see it.
Is this the same Desmond Howard that picked Texas A&M to make it to the championship game and didn't even pick them to win it. I mean,
Also, Pitt.
Pitt and hang on, I'm going to find this real quick because it's amazing. It is.
Oh yeah.
But in regards to Illinois and Michigan, Illinois is a very good secondary, so they may just try to man up. And Bill Connolly, I haven't been able to find him specifically putting these numbers out, but there's a post on the Buckeye Huddle message board about J.J. McCarthy's numbers against man coverage and zone, and man coverage are very bad. He averages about 3 completions a game against man coverage and completes like 40% of his passes. And Illinois, aggressive defense, and they can man those receivers up and then just sell out to stop the run. Like that's what they are equipped to do. But I still expect Michigan to eventually overwhelm, as they have done all year.
Desmond Howard's playoff bracket as of August 27th. Texas A&M versus Pittsburgh on one side, Baylor and Michigan on the other. Texas A&M over Michigan in the national championship game.
Well, at least he wasn't a homer.
That's just no words, only emotions. Like it's wow.
That is the loud cackle of college football playoff predictions.
God. Toledo just got a safety on a kickoff return. I think the guy picked it up in the end zone.
They should probably give him forward progress.
Put it at the 1.
Forward progress to the half-yard line. That is, he picked it up in the end zone. And instead of just taking a knee, which he could have done, and getting the ball to 25, he very hesitantly ran out and got half a yard.
Why does Toledo hate OU so much?
So he did get it out.
He got it out. Yeah, forward progress to the 1. Yeah.
So now you got 99 yards to go, 5 seconds. Do you throw a quick 50-yard out and then, got you 1 second left?
I've done this in Tecmo Bowl a bunch of times. Let me tell you, gang. Here's you drop Warren Moon back.
Warren Moon.
You drop Warren Moon back. Haywood Jeffries runs a streak at the top of the screen. You got to wait till he gets all the way down there. You got to run. You might have to scramble around the end zone a little bit. You can throw also. You want to try and line it up straight shot along that top sideline. So it's just a straight shot. You're not trying to throw it diagonally across the field because that's unrealistic to throw it from sideline to sideline 100 yards in the air. So you want to go all the way to the top of the screen and then just straight down that sideline and just make sure he's down there before you throw it. But you want to get it before he gets back of the end zone because otherwise he's you want to get it before he gets the back of the end zone.
The most annoying thing is when it's over. But when you go ahead, Tom.
They just threw a pass. They had a guy right behind them, all set for hook and lateral. Instead, the guy goes out of bounds at the 20-yard line. Like, okay, we're gonna go out of bounds at the 20-yard line. So now it's just an 80-yard throw. So now we can throw a Hail Mary from here. Like, it's just tremendous game management all around from Toledo the last.
That was not an MVP performance, but the real MVPs are the 250 people that are still on with us here 2 hours into this show to listen to our food takes, to listen to a little college football playoff talk, to talk some action. I mean, so give yourselves a hand, everybody who's stayed with us, especially those who have been with us for the whole hour and 58 at this point.
Real quick for JV1, I don't know, any word on Mayan for this week or next? I do not expect him to play this week in order that so that he can play next week. And Ryan Day said that of the 3 of Chip Trayanum, Travion Henderson, and Mayan Williams, like all 3 could possibly be back, but more likely 2 would be back that they're hoping for. And he wouldn't say which 2, but you can do the math on that. And you figure it's the 2 guys who weren't playing last week. And the 1 guy who got hurt last week is the one who won't be playing this week, because that's how it's been all season long. And I think Travion and Mayan Williams have played in 3 Big Ten games together this year. So, now it's Mayan's got the week off. It's everybody else's turn. And that's where that is going, in my opinion. Anybody want to differ with me? Feel free.
I wouldn't even travel Mayan. I would bring Travion, even if the plan is for him to be kind of the emergency alert 5 guy, because you want to have a veteran back who's been in the offense for 2 years to be there to cheerlead, to counsel, a young back in Dallin Hayden, a guy who played running back at Arizona State and Chip Trayanum, but then came here to play linebacker. You need to have somebody there to have kind of that player coach, even if the plan isn't necessarily to play Trevion. And we don't know really what their plan is at that point. But there were people in the chat earlier today who were like, I wouldn't even travel either of them. I'm like, well, they have more spots just based on the number of injuries. It's not like they're going to have to make some really complicated decisions on who's going to be able to go.
Plus,
right.
I don't think you have more.
Jagger LaRoche on the team anymore, so you've got that extra running back spot, and I think in order of likelihood of people to play, like barring future injury, I'd say 100% Dallin Hayden, about 95% Chip Trainum, and probably 80 or 85% Travion Henderson, because Day said he was expecting to get multiple of those guys back, and I think the multiple is Chip Trainum and probably Travion Henderson, and then you have and like Tony said, bring them down there, have Mayan just stay home, keep that rest, ice, compression, elevation, keep that ankle up, and because you don't need him to beat Maryland, you may need him to beat Michigan, so. Yeah, keep him at home. No need to put him on an airplane. Like, just stay home, rest it, heal up, and then, if you don't need Travion Henderson, like, fine, don't run Travion Henderson. But I think they're probably going to want to run him some just to get him back into the game and back into just the flow of the offense a little bit. But it would not surprise me if you saw 8 carries for Travion Henderson on Saturday, and then 15 for Dallin Hayden, and another 5 to 10 for Chip Trainum or something like that.
Yeah, I think in the bold predictions show this week we might be bidding each other up on Dallin Hayden's yardage. We'll see how that goes. It could be his third 100-yard game of the season, which would tie Travion Henderson last year as true freshman, still below J.K. Dobbins in 2017 by maybe 1 or 2, which is pretty crazy because Dallin Hayden, not necessarily an every down guy at this point, as you guys all know. Super chat from Jordan Kapler. Why is no one talking about Jesse Mirko at RB1 or
anti-Australian
Mirko?
bias? That's why.
Yeah,
anti-Australian bias.
Yeah, that's part of it. Also, I don't know that you want to ruin his average, the 22-yard average per carry. Although every time he punts now, you're like, after he punts it, you're like, should he have run that one? You're analyzing the lanes that he has because you know what he's capable of, and you're like, yeah, because you don't often get to critique punters and their decision making. Now we can, which is fantastic. I like it. Once you show what you can do, if you don't reach that goal every single time afterwards, you're going to have to hear about it.
He needs a couple more carries so he can be qualified. For all the major awards and everything else.
Although I do remember last year, Jackson Smith and Jigba not making the all Big Ten team or the second team because the Big Ten did not have him listed in their stats on BigTen.com. And that was a bit of a snafu on their part because he was like 4th in the conference at that time in receptions or whatever. But whatever, that's, no grudges or anything like that. There's a bunch of questions, and we have been doing this for 2 hours. We will be doing another live stream.
Do we want to talk about our schedule for next week? At least give people a vague idea. All right. So
our channel will probably be on.
Yeah. Go ahead. First of all, hit the thumbs up button right now. Go ahead. I'll wait. Hit the thumbs up button. Make sure you are subscribed to the channel. Make sure you hit the bell so you get notified because we have big plans for next week. We'll have a bunch of stuff this week. We'll have the usual pre and post game coverage this week, live from Maryland, and all that. And because it's a 3:30 game, we're planning to actually have a live pregame show because we can do that logistically this week, which we've not been able to do for a couple recent weeks. So that'll be fun. And then right about midway through the third quarter, I'm going to guess most people are going to be sort of mentally turning the page to Michigan week. And we have already started turning that page in some ways. We have already started laying out what should be, we'll call it an aggressive schedule of podcasts for next week because we know, you guys are looking for stuff to make, you are looking for people to listen to talk about Ohio State football next week as you're trying to will the week away as they count down the hours to the game. And also, we've sat at Thanksgiving tables with relatives, and we know it's, you're going to just pop an AirPod in one ear, and you'll be fine. You can listen to us, and traveling and all that kind of stuff. We're going to try and load you up with shows at the beginning of the week, so you have lots of stuff to listen to as you're driving, wherever you are driving, and then sitting through, whatever. You don't want to watch the NFL. You can listen to podcasts. We'll have live shows all week, all sorts of stuff, and then extended pregame coverage and extended postgame coverage as well. So it's going to be a busy week. You're going to be seeing a lot of us, but so go ahead and just email your relatives updates on yourselves, so that way you don't have to tell them. Be like, you just check your email, it'll be fine. I got to go listen to this podcast. These idiots dropped another one.
Or have your relatives listen too.
And you know what? Find old relatives who don't listen to podcasts. Subscribe on their podcast devices. On their, get their phone. 5-star ratings only, please, and subscribe, download. Just tremendous help to us. So yeah.
You just basically, you're almost like suggesting the podcast version of, and just get their social security checks, and you just sign it on the back.
Well, if you're going to do that, have them sign up for Buckeye Huddle as well. But I think they would really enjoy being members of Buckeye Huddle.
Don't do any of that, but feel free, sign up on your own. Ryan Dawes, where will Hungry Huddle be in Maryland? I don't know that. We're not revealing that. Is that correct?
No, we're not revealing it yet.
But it is a place that is a type of restaurant I don't think Tony has ever been in. So I think this is going to be more fancy than a fast food place. So this is going to be a tremendous content.
Yeah, sure is. I'm looking forward to it.
I may do a head explosion in this one as well. I don't know. I'll have more time since I won't have to get it cut the night of.
Thank you, Michael Day. I think that will then do it for us. We did not plan to be here this late. Thank you all for joining us. Thank you for watching Tom Izzo along with us. For those of you here early, thank you to those of you who are here late. Thank you for all the super chats. Thank you for just spending some time with us and keeping us from talking to ourselves. That will do it for tonight. Again, please check us out at BuckeyeHuddle.com. As we said, go ahead and become a member. Say hello to us there. And if you've already hit the thumbs up, as Tom has nicely asked you to do. So thank you all, and we will talk to you guys later.